What's the speed of dark? Bet you never thought about that one before, have you? Hello, welcome to you. I'm Robert. This is my list of the top 16 greatest guitar amps ever, practice guitar amps edition. I'll be honest with you, I resisted making this video forever because, quite frankly, I don't like practice amps. But that said, a large number of you have all asked me to make this video, and the truth is, it makes sense with as many people as there are that are still stuck at home. Nobody's out playing any shows or anything like that. It makes sense for people to have a small, good quality practice amp laying around that they can practice with at reasonable volumes. So, with that in mind, I decided to go ahead and cave and put together this particular list for you, my wonderful viewers. Here we go. Number 1, Line 6 Spider 5 Series, and of course the Spider 5 Mark IIs. Yep, you are correct. I have in fact crapped all over the Line 6 Spider Series amps before in the past, and I am sticking to my word on that. The first three, 1, 2s, and 3s were all terrible. Still hate them. The 4s are a little bit better, but the 5s, on the other hand, this was the first version of the Spider Series amps that Line 6 put out after they had been bought out by Yamaha. So these are the first ones that have Yamaha's top-notch financial backing and engineering put into them. And these are by far the best iterations of Line 6 Spider amplifiers. Great sounding modeling amps. You can get them anywhere from, I think, 15 watts all the way, 15 or 20 watts anyway, all the way up to, I think, 240 is the big one now. Lots of great sounds in them to be had, lots of great features, and if you happen to like modeling amps and like doing all the twisty knobby stuff, these could be for you. Number 2, the Roland Cube Series. Now, I admit, I've never really been a real big fan of modeling amps, and if you followed my channel for any length of time at all, you're probably aware of that. However, the Roland Cube Series, while technically I guess they are still modeling amplifier, they don't model 200 different amps. They model 6 or 8. Maybe a few more than that, with the larger ones. But the Roland Cube Series amplifiers, the 40 watt in particular, are actually really, really good practice amps because, again, there's a lot of really great sounds in them to be had. And there is also a really, really handy-to-use looper that you can get on some of them. And particularly the 40 watt, which also has a low wattage mode. If 40 watts is a little too loud, you simply press one button on it, and that will take it down to, I believe, just 1 watt, which is very, very conducive to bedroom levels. I've had a Cube 40 XL for a number of years now. I've gotten a lot of use out of it. Again, it's been a great, handy little practice amp. Not the greatest recording amp in the world, but it has been a fantastic practice amplifier. I recommend it to anybody. Number 3, Boss Katana Series. For years in the modeling amplifier / practice amplifier arena, Line 6 had dominated that market above anybody else. Fender, Peavey, all of them, none of them could touch Line 6. Until Boss came out with the Katanas, and the story behind it is actually pretty interesting because they were just putting out an amp just so they had something to compete in that arena. And what players discovered very, very quickly was that the Boss Katanas were the only one of those amps that were also designed to take pedals really, really well, as most modeling amplifiers don't do that. This is the only one that allowed players to also use their current great big gigantic pedal boards along with their modeling practice amp. And before you know it, the Boss Katana soon became the #1 selling amp on the planet as far as modeling amps go. Number 4, Marshall Lead 12. These amps were a solid-state amplifier from Marshall made back in the 1980s, late 80s, I believe. And of course, back in that era, the JCM 900 and pretty much all the big Marshall tube heads were king. If you didn't have the money for a Marshall tube head, or it just was simply too loud for your needs, you needed something that you could tame down a little bit better, the Marshall Lead 12 was an excellent alternative. Because it sounded, it certainly didn't sound identical to a JCM 800, but for a solid state amplifier, it certainly did get you well into the ballpark. These actually are really, really cool amps. You can still find them on the used market. They made a small little 15 watt head, I think, with a couple of small little 112, 110 or 112 speaker cabinets to make a mini full stack. You could get it in 112 combos, 212 combo configurations. They made all different kinds of versions of them. Great sounding little amps if you just want something, if you just want a simple solid state amp. Number 5, the Ibanez Infinium V5. Yes, I know I have crapped all over Ibanez amps here in the past on my channel as well, but the only amps that I have really crapped on are the pre-Infinium series. I'm going to say that again. The only Ibanez amps I have ever said anything negative about are the Infinium series, because the pre-Infinium series, I don't care what model you were talking about, were all notorious for blowing up. However, Ibanez straightened all those problems out and came out with the Infinium series, and some of those same models even carried over, as they had fixed them all. The V5 is a small little 5-watt all-tube combo that I think only has about 3 knobs on it. Great little classic rock amp, good little clean amp, great to run pedals into, particularly for just jamming around at home, doing some, riff writing or even some basic recording stuff. And they're very, very affordable. This is actually one of the most affordable tube amps on the market today. Number 6, the Randall RD5 Combo. This one is kind of along the lines of the Ibanez V5, except this one is, number 1, it's a larger combo with a 12-inch speaker in it, and number 2, it's also geared a little bit more towards the metal players. I have used my Randall Diavolo 20-watt head to record many a demo on this channel, among other things. They are great sounding heads. These are designed by the legendary Mike Fortin. And the 5-watt combo version out of this series has a great clean sound on it. It's got a great gain channel. It can do really a whole lot. And it's Randall, so it's awesome. Number 7, the Marshall DSL5 CR. Marshall's current line of the DSL series amplifiers are some of the best sounding and best bang for your buck amplifiers on the market today. Seriously, I've talked about this a number of times as well. The Marshall DSLs sound really, really good. The 5-watt combo is perfect for home use, home practice, home recording, all that stuff. And even if I'm wrong and it's still a little bit too much for you, they even make a 1-watt version that you can step down to something even smaller than that. Number 8, Peavey MH Series. I gotta admit, I was originally just gonna mention the 6505 MH. However, Peavey have gotten on board the low wattage bandwagon and put out some low wattage versions of some of the great amp heads. There is now, of course, the 6505 version that I just mentioned, and that, by the way, sounds just like a Peavey 6505 Plus. They also have an MH version of the Invective. They have the Classic. It's a Classic 20 MH out of their Classic series. Those amps are killer. And I believe now there's also a Valve King version. 20 watts, they sound just like their big brothers, and most of them, and they can be used in a lot of low volume environments very, very effectively. And also, they're very, very affordably priced, as most of them can be found for about, I think, $700 or less. Number 9, the Vox Pathfinder. This is another solid state amp that, for whatever reason, people love this thing, and there's been several different versions that have come out over the years. I originally started just to focus on the 15R, as that one seems to be the most popular, but there's also just a regular Vox Pathfinder 15, and I believe the current version that is out on the market right now is the Pathfinder 10. Really small little combos, low wattage, but these things, they sound great. They sound just like small little Vox amps. And they take pedals really, really well. They're great for practicing at home. They're great for recording. And like I said, this is one of those amps that this may be the biggest sleeper amp on this list. But old school Vox fanatics love this thing. Number 10, Crate GLX65.
Well, what are you doing putting a crate amp on? Crate amps suck. Crate amps are terrible. Why would you put a
You just shut your mouth, pay attention to this channel here in the coming weeks, and I'm going to prove to you that crate amps, even the solid state amps, do not suck. Number 11, the Positive Grid Spark, or the Spark 40 or whatever they're calling this. You know, before anybody gets too excited, no, I'm not going to demo one of these. You're not going to see this amp on my channel. This is not my thing. And this, of every entry on this list, this is the one that I wrestled with the most as far as whether or not I should include it. However, I have consulted with a couple of friends of mine, such as Alan at Geargasms, Jim from the Practical Guitarist, you know, other people here, you know, in the industry, in the genre that do own them. They all assured me that it does in fact belong on this list. Yes, it could probably stand some improvement here in a few areas, and that's okay. I don't think any amplifier out there is not exempt from that. That said, this is probably the only amp that can, you know, on this list it might be small enough to set on top of a desk and literally do everything that you need to do, either from the amp itself or from the app on either your phone or tablet, which is also the most unique and probably the most popular feature about this thing is you can control a lot of it and get a lot of different sounds out of it from the mobile app. So, pretty cool. Number 12, the 2 Notes Torpedo Captor X.
What are you doing putting that on? That's not an amplifier.
You're right, it's not an amplifier. But you know what? Of every single thing on this list, this is the one that I would buy first. You know why? Because this is the thing that will allow me to turn any of my amplifiers into a practice amp. I can simply run my amplifier through the Captor X into my interface or into a multi-track recorder or into a Bluetooth speaker, whatever it is. And not only will it handle the load of my tube amp and prevent it from blowing up, it also has, you know, arguably the best cab simulator on the market on board, and which means that I can get any cab sound out of it with any speaker virtually by twisting one knob. This was voted the best, you know, the best new gear of 2020 for a reason. You are seeing these things all over the place in YouTube videos and, well, pretty much everything you're seeing nowadays is online, but there is a reason why the Captor X was voted the best new gear of 2020 in multiple forums. I myself am planning on adding a Captor X here in the next few months so that I can more effectively and more efficiently record with my tube amps. Number 13, the Joyo Bantam Series. I've demoed a couple of these on my channel, this one here being the Zombie. Great little practice amps, you know, the hybrid amplifier. They actually have a preamp tube in them with a solid state power section. 20 watts, 3 knobs, 2 channels. They all have a clean channel, and the gain channel is either, you know, this one being the Zombie. This is a model. This is their Mesa Boogie model. They have a Marshall version. They have an orange, like a rocker version. They've got a Vox AC version. I think there's one for an Engel Fireball, and the last one I think is the 5150/6505. You know, so you can even collect all of these things and still have a small, very, very small little stack of little amplifiers and have 5 awesome practice amps in front of you. And like I said, every one of them has a clean channel, so it's not like you're just buying a pile of gain. These things also take pedals really, really well, and they even have an effects loop. Also, the Bluetooth feature allows you to play your own songs through them and use them, you know, as a play along. For example, if you're trying to learn a solo of a particular well-known song. And last but not least, you can pick any one of these up out there on the interwebs for about $160 a piece. Great little amps, great values. Number 14, the Boss Wazacraft Air Headphones. Yes, these are technically an amplifier. These, you know, the technology involved in developing these things is, you know, some type of voodoo that I've never been able to wrap my head around. But you gotta admit, watch some videos on this. These are pretty cool because you could put on these headphones and it will create a virtual amplifier anywhere in the room that I'm sitting in. And as I turn my head, you know, the main point of where the virtual amp in the room is remains the same, and therefore behaves to my ears just like an amplifier. Not only really handy, but also really portable. Wireless connection to your guitar even, so you don't even have to mess with a cable. This is a pretty good idea from Boss. Number 15, the Orange Crush Series. Not to be confused with the Orange Crush Pro Series. Those are much bigger. But the Orange Crush Series are the smaller, more practice-sized combos. There is, I believe, a 12 that sells for about $100. Then I think there's a 20 and a 35, and I think there's a couple of different versions of each of those. So several different varieties to choose from. This is one of the only all-analog amplifiers on this list, and really about one of the only all-analog solid-state practice amps on the market today, period, as most of the stuff nowadays is all moved towards digital. Great sounding little amps, great value, very affordable, built well. They absolutely get the job done. Number 16, Yamaha THR Series. Hammer makes some excellent gear, and I have been a huge advocate of theirs for most of my life, to be honest with you. I can't think of a single piece of Yamaha gear that I've ever been disappointed in. Well, except for this, but that was like 30-something years ago. Seriously, Yamaha just make great gear, and so often they are overlooked. This is their version of a desktop modeling amplifier, and the current version, the WL series that have the Line 6 wireless technology inside of them. I mentioned that relationship between those two companies before, makes this thing even that much more versatile. You can get the 10-watt versions. You can get the 15-watt. There's a 30-watt that you can even use to play some small gigs with. They have an acoustic version. They have a bass version. And at one time, anyway, there was a high-gain metal version, though I don't know that they've come out with that one yet in the current line. Regardless, as a guy who sells this stuff for a living, I've sold a lot of Yamaha THR amps over the years since they came out, and I don't think I've ever had anybody complain about them. Excellent quality amplifiers that a lot of people just completely overlook and don't even think to check out. So there you have it. There is my list of your top 16 greatest practice guitar amplifiers ever. Maybe not ever, but close enough ever as far as this channel goes. So seriously, in the words of my good friend Techie Tony Ramsey, practice. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We'll see you in the next video.